All right, welcome on. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. So I'll give you guys a minute to go ahead and jump in. I see I got one already. I'm guessing it's Jerry. Welcome aboard. So let's go ahead and just do a quick recap of where we're at so far in the story. So we are at a point right now where our three main characters are a harpooner, a scientist, and the scientist's servant have all been captured, and they're in this submarine that's way too advanced for the time. And they've been imprisoned for a little while, and they've already met somebody that they assume to be the captain. They tried to explain themselves in French, English, German, and even Latin, and he didn't respond to them at all. At this point, he actually went back and actually, they went in to give give the prisoners more food, the harpooner went and attacked the servant. While he was attacking them, he heard in French the captain actually coming around the corner and telling him to calm down and listen to him. So the characters are all speaking French because the professor is actually from France. His servant is Belgian, which is also a French-speaking country, and his harpooner friend is a French Canadian. So let's go ahead and get started on chapter 10, Man of the Water. It was the ship's commander who had just spoken. At these words, Ned Land got up hastily. Nearly strangled, the steward staggered out from the signal of his superior. But the commander had such authority aboard his vessel that the crewmen didn't give a single sign of resentment he must have felt towards the Canadian. I stood there dumbfounded in spite of myself. Conseil seemed almost interested as we silently waited for the outcome of this drama. Arms folded, leaning on the corner of the table, the commander studied us with great care. Was he reluctant to say more? Did he regret those words he'd just spoken in French? It seemed like it. After a few seconds of silence, during which none of us dreamed of breaking, he finally said, "Gentlemen," in a calm, penetrating voice, "I speak French, English, German, and Latin with equal fluency, so I could have answered you at an earlier interview, but I first wanted to make your acquaintance and then think things over. Your four narratives agreed in every essential detail and established your personal identities for me. I now know that it is sheer chance that put me in the presence of Professor Pierre Aronneau, specialist in natural history at the Paris Museum and entrusted with a scientific mission aboard, his manservant Conseil, and Ned Land, a harpooner of Canadian origin aboard the Abraham Lincoln, a frigate in the National Navy of the United States of America." I nodded in agreement. The commander hadn't asked me the question, so no answer was called for. This man expressed himself with perfect ease and without any accent. His phrasing was clear, his words well chosen, his delivery remarkably fluent, and yet he didn't have the feel of a countryman. He went on with the conversation as follows. "No doubt you felt, sir, that I took too long to pay you a second visit. After learning your identities, I wanted to weigh carefully what policy I should adopt towards you. I had difficulty deciding. Some highly inconvenient circumstances have put you in the presence of a man who has cut himself off from humanity. You've disrupted my whole existence." "We didn't mean to," I said. "You didn't mean to," the stranger replied, raising his voice a little. "Didn't the Abraham Lincoln mean to hunt me across the 7 seas? Didn't you mean to travel aboard that frigate? Didn't your shells mean to strike my hull? Didn't Mr. Ned Land mean to hit me with a harpoon?" I detected a repressed anger in these words, but there was a perfectly natural answer to these accusations, and I gave it. "Sir," I said, "you undoubtedly have no idea of the discussions that you have been going on in Europe and America. You aren't aware of the public passions aroused in both of these continents by various collisions with your underwater machine. I won't go into the countless theories with which I've tried to explain this bewildering phenomenon, whose secret is yours alone. But please understand that the Abraham Lincoln chased you over the Pacific high seas in the belief that it was hunting some powerful marine monster, which had to be removed from the ocean at any cost." A half smile loosened the commander's lips. Then, in a calmer tone, "Professor Aronneau," he replied, "do you dare claim your frigate wouldn't have chased and cannonaded an underwater boat just the same that it would his monster?" This question baffled me, since I knew Commander Farragut would not have hesitated for a second. He would have seen it as his sworn duty to destroy a contraption of this sort just as promptly as a gigantic narwhal. So you understand, sir, the stranger went on, that I have every right to treat you as my enemies. I kept quiet, with good reason. What was the point of debating this proposition with superior force that can crush the best arguments? It took me a while to decide, the commander went on. I was under no obligation to offer my hospitality. If I were to part company with you, I wouldn't have any reason to see you again. I could have put you back on the platform of the ship that has ever served as your refuge. I could sink under the sea and forget you ever existed. Wouldn't that be my right? Maybe it would be the right of a savage, I replied, but not of a civilized man. Professor, the commander countered instantly, I am not what you term a civilized man. I have severed all ties with society for reasons that I alone am qualified to appreciate. Therefore, I do not follow its rules and ask that you never refer to them in front of me. This was plain. This was plain speaking. A flash of anger and scorn had lit up the stranger's eyes, and I glimpsed some fearsome past in this man's life. Not only had he put himself outside of human laws, he had rendered himself independent, unreachable, free in the strictest sense of the word. Because who would dare chase him to the depths of the sea when he could thwart all attacks from the surface? What ship could survive a collision with his underwater monitor? What armor plate, no matter how heavy, could withstand a thrust from his spur? No man among men would require him to account for his actions. God, if he believed in one, his conscience, if he had one, these were the only judges to whom he was answerable. And here is a picture of the captain, whose name we will learn shortly. These thoughts had swiftly crossed my mind. While this strange individual fell silent, I felt like somebody completely self-absorbed. I regarded him with a mixture of fear and fascination, in the same way, no doubt, that Oedipus regarded the Sphinx. So after a terribly long silence, the commander went on with our conversation. So I had difficulty deciding, he said, but I felt it in my best interest that could be reconciled with the natural compassion with which all human beings have a right. Since fate has brought you here, you'll stay aboard my vessel. You'll be free on board, and in exchange for this comparative freedom, I will lay one condition on you. Your word, and that you'll agree to it to be sufficient. Go on, sir, I replied. I assume it's a condition any decent person could accept? Yes, it is. It's this. There's a possibility that certain unforeseen events may require me to confine you to your cabin for a few hours, or even a few days, as the case may be. Since I never want to use force, except I expect you from such excuse me, I expect from you in such a situation, even more than any other, your unquestioning obedience. By acting in this way, I protect you from any involvement, clear you of any responsibility, since I myself make it impossible for you to see what you are not meant to see. Do you accept this condition? So things happened here that were quite odd, to say the least. Things not fit to be seen by people who hadn't put themselves outside society's laws. Among the surprises that the future had in store with me, this would be the mildest. We accept, I replied. But with your permission, sir, I'll ask you a question. Just one. Go ahead, sir. You said we would be free aboard your vessel? Completely. Then I would like to know what you mean by this freedom. Why, the freedom to come and go, see, even study everything happening under here, except under rare circumstances. In short, the same freedom we ourselves enjoy, my companions and I. We clearly weren't talking about the same thing. Excuse me, sir, I went on, but that's merely the freedom any prisoner has. The freedom to walk around his cell. That's not enough for us. Nevertheless, it will have to do. What? We must give up seeing our homeland, our friends and relatives ever again? Yes, sir. But giving up that intolerable earthly yoke that some people call freedom may not be as painful as you think. By thunder, Ned Loudon shouted. I'll never promise I won't try getting out of here. I didn't ask for such a promise, Mr. Land, the commander replied icily. Sir, I responded, flaring up in spite of myself, you're taking unfair advantage of us. This is sheer cruelty. No, sir. It is an act of mercy. You're my prisoners of war. I've cared for you when a single word of mine would have plunged you back into the ocean's depths. You attacked me. You have unearthed a secret no living man must probe, the secret of my whole existence. And you think I'll send you back to the human world that mustn't know anything more of me? Never. By keeping you here, it is you I care for. It's myself. As these words indicated, the commander has adopted a policy that brooked no opposition. Then, sir, I went on, you give us, quite simply, a choice between life and death. Quite simply. My friends, I said, when the question's put to us like that, our answer can't be taken for granted. But we haven't made any promises to the commander of the vessel. None, sir, the stranger replied. Then, in a gentler voice, he went on. Now let me finish what I have come to tell you. I've heard of you, Professor Aerodno. You, if not your companions, may not be so inclined to complain about the stroke of fate that brought us together. Among the books that make up my favorite reading, you'll find the work you've published on the great ocean depths. I often refer to it. I've taken your research as far as terrestrial science can go. But you don't know everything because you haven't seen everything. Let me assure you, Professor, you won't regret the time that you spend aboard my vessel. You're going to voyage through a land of wonder. Stunned amazement will most likely be your habitual state of mind. It will be a long while before you tire of the sights continually in front of your eyes. Once again, I'll be going on a world tour underwater, maybe my last, who knows? And I'll review everything I've studied in the ocean depths across the seas I've crossed so often, and you can be my fellow student. Starting today, you'll enter a new element. You'll see what no human being has seen before, since my men and I don't count anymore. And thanks to me, you're going to learn our planet's ultimate secrets. I can't deny it. The commander's words had a tremendous effect on me. He'd hit me in my weak spot, and for a second I forgot that not even such sublime sights as these could repay me for the loss of my freedom. Anyhow, I relied on the futures to settle this major issue, so I was content to reply, "Sir, even though you've cut yourself off from humanity, I'm willing to believe that you haven't given up all humanitarian feelings. We're castaways you've charitably taken on board. We'll never forget that. And speaking for myself, I won't deny that my scientific interests can often underride my desire for freedom. So I'm positive our association will have plenty of compensation for me." I thought the commander would offer me his hand to seal our bargain. He did nothing of the sort. That disappointed me. "One last question," I said, just as this bewildering individual seemed ready to take his leave. "Ask it, Professor." "What name shall I call you?" "Sir," the commander replied, "to you, I'm simply Captain Nemo, and to you and your companions, you are simply my passengers aboard the Nautilus." Captain Nemo called out. A steward appeared. The captain issued his orders in a strange language I couldn't recognize. Then, turning to the Canadian concierge, "A meal is waiting for you in your cabin," he told them. "Kindly follow this man." "That's an offer I can't refuse," the harpooner replied. After being locked up for 36 hours, he and Conseil were finally out of their cell. "And now, Professor Erno, our breakfast is ready. Allow me to lead the way." "Yours to command, Captain." I followed Captain Nemo, and after I stepped through the doorway, I went down a sort of electrically lit passageway that resembled a corridor of a ship. Some 30 feet farther along, a second door opened in front of me. I went into the dining room that was austerely decorated and furnished. Austerely means like sort of humbly. Inlaid with an ebony brim, tall oaken sideboards that stood up on both ends, and in the shelves sparkled undulating rows of crockery, porcelain, glassware of incalculable value. A silver-plated dinner service gleamed under the rays, pouring the light fixtures in the ceiling, whose glare had softened and tempered by delicately painted designs. In the center of the room stood a table, richly spread. Captain Nemo pointed out which seat I was to occupy. "Sit down and eat," he told me. "You must be famished." Our breakfast consisted of several dishes whose contents were all supplied by the sea, and some foods whose nature and derivation were unknown to me. They were good, I admit, but with an odd flavor that I would soon get used to. These various food items seemed rich in phosphorus, and I thought they too must have been of marine origin. Captain Nemo looked at me. I hadn't said a thing to him, but he read my thoughts, and on his own accord he answered the questions I was itching to ask him. "Most of these dishes are new to you," he told me, "but you can consume them without fear. They are wholesome and nourishing. I gave up terrestrial food long ago, and I'm none the worse for it. My crew are strong and full of energy, and they eat what I eat." So terrestrial just means having to do with the land. "So," I said, "all these foods are the handiwork of the sea?" "Yes, Professor, the sea supplies me with everything I need. Sometimes I cast my nets in our wake and I pull them until they are ready to burst. Sometimes I go hunting, right in the midst of the element that seems so far out of man's reach. and I corner the game that dwells in my underwater forests. Like the flocks of our old Proteus, Neptune's shepherd, my herds graze without fear over the ocean's immense prairies. There have I there I have vast properties, and I harvest myself. Properties that are continually sown by the hand of the creator of all things. I looked at Captain Nemo in definitive surprise, and I answered, Sir, I fully understand how your nets can furnish this excellent fish for your table, and I understand less how you can hunt aquatic game in your underwater forests. But how a piece of red meat, no matter how small, can figure in your menu, that I don't understand at all. Nor I, sir, Captain Nemo answered me. I never touch the flesh of land animals. Nevertheless, this, I went on, pointing at a dish where some slices of loin were still left. What you believe to be red meat, Professor, is simply the loin of a turtle, sea turtle. Likewise, there are some dolphin lizards that you might mistake for stewed pork. My chef is a skillful food processor who specializes in pickling and preserving these different items from the ocean. Feel free to sample all these foods. Here is some preserves from sea cucumbers that a Malay would call unmatched in the whole world. Here's cream for the milk from milk furnished by the udders of cetaceans. Sugar from huge fucus plants from the North Sea, and finally, let me offer you some marmalade of sea anemone, equal to that made of the tastiest fruits. So I sampled away, no more a curiosity seeker than an epicure, while the Captain Nemo delighted me with his incredible anecdotes. But this sea, Professor Aeronaut, he told me, this prodigious, inexhaustible wet nurse of the sea, not only feeds me, but dresses me as well. These clothes you have on were woven from the mast filaments anchoring certain seashells, in the style of the ancients. They were colored from a dye of the purpura shell, shaded with violet tints that I extract from a marine slug noticed in the Mediterranean Sea here. The lotions you'll find on your washstand in your cabin were produced from the oozings of marine plants. Your mattress was made from the ocean's softest eelgrass. Your quill pen will be whalebone, your ink a fluid secreted by a cuttlefish or a squid. Everything comes to me from the sea, and someday everything will go back to it. You're in love with the sea, Captain. Deeply in love. The sea is the be all and end all. It covers 7/10 of the planet Earth. Its breath is clean and wholesome. It's an immense wilderness where a man is never alone because he feels life stirring all around him. The sea is simply the vehicle for a prodigious, uncanny mode of existence. It's simply movement and love. It is a living infinity, as one of your poets put it. And in essence, Professor, it showcases all three of nature's kingdoms animal, mineral, and vegetable. The animal is well represented in the four zoo type groups: three classes of articulata, five classes of mollusks, three vertebrate classes, mammals, reptiles, and countless legions of fish, in an infinite order of creatures totaling more than 13,000 species, only a tenth of which belong in freshwater. Thus, the sea is a huge natural preserve. In a sense, our planet started with the sea, and who's to say it won't end with it? Here I find supreme tranquility. The sea does not belong to tyrants. On the surface, they can still stake their evil claims, battle each other, devour each other, haul every earthly horror. But 30 feet below the sea level, their power ceases. Their influence fades. Their domination vanishes. Ah, sir, live. Live in the heart of the seas. Here alone do I find independence. Here I recognize no superiors. Here I am free. Captain Nemo suddenly fell silent in the midst of his enthusiastic outpourings. Had he let his guard down and gotten away? Carried away? Had he said too much? For a few seconds he paced around all a quiver. Then his agitation subsided. His facial expression recovered its usual icy composure. And turning to me, he said, Now, Professor, he said, if you would like to inspect the Nautilus, I'm yours to command. All right. Thank you, guys. Let's go ahead and take this tomorrow at 3. We'll go back aboard the Nautilus now that we know our captain. And I will see you guys then. Peace.